teachers that I have here, I would like to invite them to take part in this panel discussion. First of all, um, uh, Gowri, Ishwaran. Now, I'm going to put a longest question before you. Uh,
Oh God.
because given your experience, I think this is something that we need to reflect upon. So there are two kinds of evaluations we have seen. One is the end of the year assessment, that is annual examinations for our school children. That has been a staple options for such a long period of time, although there have been internal assessments that were being done in the school system. But the internal continuous evaluation is now coming up as the main option before the teachers as well as the students and the parents, the three stakeholders in school education to take us forward. And that's where, how do we compare them? What are the pros and cons of the two systems? Are there any comparison with this, with the developed world? What is being practiced in other parts of the world? Will applied knowledge be more practical for addressing economic growth over traditional learning by the rote, by the rote system? That I think is something that you would like to hear from you. Gowri, your 4 minutes begins now.
Okay, thank you so much. Obviously, I would like to start off by saying I don't think the road system will get us anywhere. It is a spillover from the colonial legacy that was left to us. And we don't want to create a generation of only clerks and subordinates. So therefore, the rote learning system is definitely out. Now, the continuous evaluation system is certainly commendable, provided it's done in the right way. We have to remember that in India, we can't really copy the West in what they are doing because of our numbers. So if you have a continuous evaluation system, then it's something that needs to be given to the class teacher. What happened in the past when CBSE introduced it was they made it across the board. And you know, government school teachers who teach 6 sections of 60 kids each, I mean, it was impractical to expect them to do a really honest evaluation of the child's various skills. So whatever we plan, we have to keep in mind numbers. Because in no way are we, if we think we are going to have 25 kids in a class across this country, it's not going to happen because it's not possible. So whatever evaluation system we plan, we have to remember that there are that many children in the class. A certain component of academic competence has to be there, but not in the rote learning method, but from the point of view of problem solving, of creative thinking, of innovation. So we need a lot of focus on these aspects in whatever evaluation we plan. Another thing I find is when we plan our evaluation system, we have to be very clear on what is the outcome you want. How much of the academic quotient are you looking at? How much are you looking at the emotional and other quotients? Is it possible to evaluate those systems, those qualities with our numbers? So we have to look at all that and be very clear as what is the practical possible outcome that can come. What we do is we do ad hoc band-aid systems, and then we do it in a hurry. See, when you introduce a new system, you need good preparation time. You need time to explain to people, to train people to adopt that evaluation system. Deciding on something in the month of July and say you introduce it from the month of October, you're actually setting yourself up for failure in that case. So the outcome focus is very important. And I think most of the time, even in the classroom, when I used to work with my teachers, I found they were so focused on this is the syllabus that they never look what is it that we want the children to know at the end of that lesson. So the outcome focus is something that we need to bring into our BEd training as well. And I think when we train teachers as well. So if we do an evaluation system based on the outcome and on the numbers in our country, it would be of great help. I also feel that we don't think enough before we jump in. And okay, you take the good thing, you go to Finland, you go to Singapore, you go to US, you look at the good things they are doing, but you have to look at how much of that will fit in our culture and our tradition. India does have a rich tradition in education. We should not forget that, and we shouldn't throw everything like throwing the baby out with the bath water. We shouldn't throw everything out. So away from rote learning, looking at problem solving, creativity and innovation, outcome based evaluation. And also we have to remember we are moving into an age of more and more technology. So whatever evaluation we plan, it has to have the technological background to it as well. Have I finished my 5 minutes?
4 minutes. You have 1 more minute.
Okay, so the last minute is focused on technology, because we have to definitely look at how we are going to leverage technology in our evaluation procedure. If we decide to ignore technology, it's not going to get us anywhere, because we are moving into an age where everything is going to be one day done by robots and bots and other such things. So keeping all this in mind, these are my few thoughts. I may be wrong, but these are my thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you, Gowri. I think this makes the absolutely appropriate beginning of this dialogue that we have today. And since outcome, you are talking about the outcome depends on the syllabus. It depends on the teacher concerned, what they are teaching, from where they are teaching. So that brings me to our secretary from NCERT, Harsh Kumar. Harsh, let us hear from you in terms of the challenges that the future generation, the cusp generation of our students, as well as teachers, are going to face in terms of the syllabus, in terms of the textbooks of the future, and so on, that are to be handled, that are to be disseminated through the technology, through the distance learning, because distance learning has become the mode of the day and of the future.
Sir, yes, sir. It was very rightly brought out by Gowri ma'am about all these aspects of teacher training and learning outcome and all. And I must brought out that learning outcome has been brought out by NCERT very beautifully in a booklet for all classes. And on the basis of that, within 2 weeks of the pandemic started, we had brought out the alternative calendar for all the classes. And as she has rightly brought out that it has to be in practical aspect, so it was done in that manner. Apart from that, to abreast with the technology and all, we have got our Central Institute of Technology, which has converted all the books into e-form, and we have got various applications available with us. And in Prime Minister's e-Vidya program, we have got 12 channels running for all the classes from class 1 to 12. And other than that, for teachers training, you see in the new education policy, many changes have been invited, and it was probably the first time in the history of independent India that an education policy has been made with so much of consultation. It was open in the forum for about 4 or 5 years, and after consultation it has come up. And it was before pandemic that we have thought about in the introduction of technology or the use of technology. And that is why one aspect in your concept note, I don't agree that we have failed with this pandemic. The schools, hats off to the teachers and the management that they have coped up with the situation, and online classes was on within a month in all the schools. Yes, one more thing which as you have in setting the pace of this conversation, you have said about the good schools and bad schools, or not so good schools. You see, we cannot certify any school as a good school, or 4 Olympians which have come, they are not from so-called good schools. You yourself said that you have studied in a government school, and why not we keep these government school, or we give this government school with more facilities. And what is that is what our present leadership a very visionary leadership that is thinking about making these schools better and better. Obviously, only government school cannot do everything. There has to be private public participation. But I also have a, I'll not say objection, but I have certain inhibition in saying education as an industry. Education can
Yes,
never
sir,
be
we
an
can't
industry because it was there in the
hear you.
concept. What, sir? Am I crossing my time or something?
No. You have 1 minute and plus 1 minute.
Okay, sir. So the thing is that we are keeping abreast with the technology, with the learning outcomes, and that is what is the required this thing. And for massive online courses, Diksha platform has been made available, in which we are running massive online courses. That is also available for the students, and very many students have taking benefit from that. So we are coping up with the situation. Government has got so many plans, and the moment this thing will be implemented, it will be as per the requirement of the day, as per the requirement of the situation. You must have gone through the new education policy of the higher education. If you go through the secondary education also, it contains all it is an integrated document for holistic development of to become a good human being, to become a good citizen of the society. Because until and unless you are a good human being, which is the main aim of the education, whatever education you get, where you go, that is. So that is what we are in our books also. It will, will be reflected. And as Madam has rightly brought out, that we have got a fantastic system of education, traditional education. We must take good things from outside, but our things should flourish, because from there, this colonial, this thing which has come up in the education, that has stopped us from thinking about ourselves. So that is what.
Okay, you have 1 more minute. Yeah, to conclude, please.
So that is what, sir, we are ready with that. And nothing can be waterproof. We will develop as and when the situation comes, and everything is in process. Government is working very hard on that. NCERT is working day and night for the implementation of the new education policy. It will be done phase wise. So that is what it is. Thank you.
Thank you, Harsh, for giving us an update on what we have been doing, what the government has been doing, and what India has been doing, and what are likely to be the future path for us to trade upon in terms of our choices and what choices should we be making. So with this, I think when you say that we are keeping abreast with the technology, I think the right person to answer that question is Professor Ajay Rana. Ajay Rana from the Amity school, and as we have already listened to him, and we know that he is our IT person in the panel here. So let us hear from the horse's mouth in terms of what challenges are there. Are we actually keeping abreast of this, or are we actually dividing the society further? There are haves and have-nots, and what are the challenges of making it accessible to every nook and corner of the country, to every section of the society? What you would perhaps be able to tell us what kind of technological challenges are there?
Thank you, Professor Binod. In fact, thank you for provide this the opportunity with this on the panelist. My point about the realistic, I'm no go with any figures and this the data, because it check with the actual ground reality. Is the online education that may be available to the each and every person of our country? Try to understand about the small kids and the college professionals. Are you able to provide the level of education, what type of their expectations? I agree with my colleague, Professor Kumar, that they have the e-Pathshala or NPTL or the book courses, they are available for the other side. I thank to the Unni Christian Committee during 1999 and 2000. Why I'm talking about all these things? Because in our country, that decision by Unni Christian Committee changed the entire revolution of the education system.
Yeah.
Before that, only the Maharashtra and the Karnataka, they are the two states who provide the education system.
Yeah.
But after that, we adopt the system. They promote the technical education, like the AKTU, Abul Kalam Technical Technical University, or Rajiv Gandhi Pravidik Vidyalaya or many others.
Yes.
And after that, there are the private universities like we, Shiv, Nadar, and the other universities, or in the south, there are Manipal or many other.
Yes.
Why they are take up the challenge more as compared to the other government and the traditional universities, because they have the entire system, they have the technologies, and they adopt the system very fast. Like for example, when I'm in Amity at that time in 2004, we have designed our own ERP we call Amazon, and at that time we applied that system. Okay, why we are focused and 100% dependent on the faculties, we more focus about only and only 60% to 70% for their delivery in the class, rest 30 to 40% on their e-learning material. There's a good scheme by the government of India, like the AICTE. We have AICTE Indest and the UGC Inflibnet. So we have applied all the systems that time to the current. So that's why we are not face any problem during the pandemic. Now the government has plays a very important role. Okay, that we have provided many channels to the free of cost to the local person, to the school kids or the college students. But is the bandwidth is available to them? Sir, you are surprised that only 37% population of our country they are use these benefits. Only 37 to 40%, max to max 40%, they are available to avail these opportunities. What about the 60% populations where we stop our kids before the pandemic? Do not go with the mobile and do not go with the internet. Your eyes and the health issue may be some problem. And what about the during pandemic? We promote our kids, we promote the young kids. Okay, please spend at least 8 hours or 6 hours in front of the machine.
Yes, yes, contradiction.
But is the government give the free ration? Government give the free about the ration and some money. But is the government provide the free of cost bandwidth to the school kids? My thinking is that why the government of India has not provide at least 2,000, 3,000 the rupees bandwidth to the all the school kids, those who are the part of. That's why if the government apply this system, then sir, we will not face any problem. Sir, you are surprised that around $24 billion every year the kids going for the higher education, for the Western education, like in the US, UK, or in sometime in Australia, $24 billion. So now the concern is that we have the brilliant minds, we have the brilliant system, we have the entire the policies, but apply before that we are waiting for the pandemic or we are waiting for the crisis. That is from my side. Government like AICT Indest or UGC Inflibnet or Shodh Ganga, Shodh Gangotri. Sir, you are surprised that around thousands and the lakhs of journals, e-papers, that the materials are available. If you go with any NPTEL course, we say that free. Nothing is free in this world, sir.
No.
Binod sir, nothing is free in this world. If you go with NPTEL, they give free, but they give the certificate to them if you pay the 1,500 rupees plus GST. What is the fault of the students who opt this NPTEL and the MOOC courses? Is the government of India provide the free of cost certificate to them?
Yeah.
Like my colleague, Professor Gopal ji and Gowri ma'am, we are not the part of this NPTEL course making structures, only and only for IITs or NITs and others. My colleague, Dr. Kumar said, that the government of India or the government schools, they provide maximum Olympians. Yes, agreed. My question is that combining all, I'm not, because I'm the part of this IIT and the NITs, is the combine all IITs or NITs are able to produce a single prime minister of our country or the president of our country? Not a single prime minister and the president of our country. Concern is that it is our responsibility to take care about each and every child of our country. Because if we go with the digital education, is we are able to provide the proper platform to them. And that's why we are not face any problem. I properly this the honestly said, Amity or Shiv Nadar or Ashoka or VIT or Manipal, they are not face a single problem with respect to delivery for digital education. What about the other Kendra Vidyalayas? What about the Delhi University? I go with the Delhi University.
You have 1 minute, sir.
I go with the other universities as well. Is they are able to provide their semester exam on time, but the other universities, they are not face any problem. Why? because all private institutions, they have only the one chance, because they have the NEC, they have NIRF, they have other accrediting agencies. We are witness that if we are not provide the quality of education or the quality of infrastructure, other governing bodies may this the watch on all our activities. So my concern is that if the private universities are able to provide the facilities and the resources to their kids, and the kids, they are not our customers. Many universities that they are not our customer, they are our product.
Yeah.
They are our brand image to represent our organization or our system in front of the external world. That's why Dr. Kumar said, Ki Olympics, maximum Olympians from the government school, they are the brand ambassadors for these government schools. So my concern, because hope so that maximum person not agree with my views, but the concern is that as an educationist, it is our government of India provide free of ration. Sir, I'm 100% agree. Ration is the capability, this is the need, the facility is the needs. But think about 32 crore plus populations, those who are going to the schools or the higher education, we provide some benefit to them. So like provide the laptop, provide the smartphone, provide the bandwidth, provide the light. So that is the requirement from my side. So thank you, Professor Binod, to provide this opportunity.
Thank you, Ajay. I think you have actually flagged the most contagious issues that are, haunting our education system at this juncture: the digital platform versus the traditional, the setup, the infrastructure problem that we have in terms of contradictions that you have actually highlighted are very, very important, extremely important. And I'm really the comparison that you have given in terms of that there was a time that we were not allowing access to these digital devices to our children because there will be health issues, they will have impact on the eyes and so on. And now we are wholeheartedly, going overboard in promoting those. That is the contradiction. And are we actually able to do that? So that, I think, is actually crux of your message, your deliberation that you have said. And you have also mentioned, when you have mentioned the health issues particularly, then I think the right person here for me to ask questions are my colleague Rajib. Rajib, what are the challenges that we face in terms of the psychological, the physiological, and the sociological impact on the present generation, the generation X, Y, Z, that have to struggle with it? Your thoughts, please, in 4 minutes. Rajib.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Professor Khadria, and thank you, Ranga, for organizing this dialogue. Over the last 10 days or about 2 weeks, the discourse or the popular and the media discourse has been whether we are in a position to reopen schools. Now, school closures, as we know, is not just about learning loss, but it entails mental distress, it entails exposure to violence, it entails missed school meals and many other programs that go with schools. The statement from the chiefs of UNICEF and UNESCO on 9th July, if I recall it correctly, was absolutely unequivocal that schools should be the last to close and the first to open. And unfortunately, it's been quite the opposite in India. Now, at this point, there is an optimism with the fourth sero survey results being available that the antibody to COVID, the prevalence of antibody to COVID has actually been quite high in Indian children to the extent of around 60% or so. As far as reopening of schools go, and focusing on the fact that it's taken a toll on mental health, social health, as well as learning. The age group of 6 to 12 and the age group above 12 are quite distinct in the COVID context, as far as infection, transmission, and susceptibility goes. It's actually easier to reopen the 6 to 12 age group because they are less susceptible, and the 12 plus age group behave exactly as adults. as far as disease dynamics go. So that's where we can limit our losses. That's where we should be focusing upon. And the dialogue today has to shift from not whether to open schools, but how to open schools. And believe me, there's a lot which is already available as standard operating procedures, as what to do, what not to do, and how to do. But it's not going to be business as usual or schooling as usual. And therefore, there's a renewed challenge, particularly to educationists, the school level educationists, which I'm not actually, to be able to focus back on some of these basics of how to recalibrate the education. Curriculum transaction is one, and we heard what the online challenges are or were. And honestly, I'm telling you, as a university teacher myself, I found that I and my colleagues were quite ill-equipped to suddenly switch onto this mode, because as Ajay said, we were not designed that way as a public university with full classroom teaching from the very genesis of a university. And therefore, we are not just that we were ill-equipped, the whole experience is quite unsatisfactory, both as teachers and I'm sure to our students. And because my center teaches public health, which is such a practical subject which involves fieldwork, it's been a very, very difficult and unsatisfactory and completely inadequate learning. And I'm sure these reflect on the way education happens in schools to much younger children. Our students are obviously grown up and more mature in that sense.
Yeah.
And therefore, there's a whole lot of recalibrating and rethinking that school education has to go through. In purely epidemiological terms, this disease is not going to go away, but it is not going to cause such large waves or upheavals as we have seen in the last 1.5 years. But there are going to be what's known as damped oscillations. So there will be an endemic equilibrium. So there will be moments of off and on phenomenon.
Rajib, let me interrupt here and ask you,
yes, sir.
All these symptoms that you are saying, how much of these are actually related to school setup, opening or closing of the school, and how much of these are evaluation related in terms of examinations, online examinations, offline examinations, in terms of their being able to cope with the bandwidth? You are writing an answer and suddenly the electricity goes or the bandwidth vanishes. And then you see the children running up and down into the corridors or to catch the bandwidth. And that, I think, is a major burden on the mind of the people, these young people that we have. And I would like you to spend just 1 minute on this particular aspect.
No, I'm sure it does. And honestly, I'm not a child psychologist or a child development professional who actually have a lot more definitive to contribute on this. But the fact is that COVID has shown us, and this is somewhat different across age groups, obviously, that social and mental well-being has been seriously compromised. That the home is just not the learning environment for much of what formal education is. Home is an environment for certain things, obviously, but not the way the curriculum transaction goes on. And examinations or evaluations have been perhaps the weakest link in all this. And they say this as a university teacher, school teachers and educators probably face somewhat different problems. But even we have had our share of woes, and the solutions that we sort of cobbled together are completely unsatisfactory. But given the fact that we teach research students, they have just a 1 year contact phase with us. After that, they go into their research thesis phase, either as an MPhil or a PhD student. it means that we have just lost that golden hour of contact, and this is
Yeah.
probably
Yeah.
complete and irreparable damage as we go along. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rajib. Thank you. I think there will be a lot of insight from this, and I hope people are listening in terms of the concerns that you have shared and the attention that this needs to be given to not only the school classroom setup, but also to the various implications of the COVID-19 itself on the health of the children, both medical, mental, and physical health. So that brings me to our last speaker, Gopal. Colonel Gopal, and I would like to ask you a very generic question in terms of, should this government review its recent release of the Education Policy 2020 in the context of particularly the assessment and the evaluation that are being prescribed there? The system is going to be overhauled, and the course, the duration of the course, the choice system, and all those, how are they related to the assessment? Because this particular panel is addressing the issue in terms of the evaluation, in terms of assessment, whether we should continue to reinstate the annual examination system or sail along with the continuous assessment. That's where what the policy has to say and what the policy should say. Gopal, your 4 minutes. Unmute, please.
Very rich conversation. So thank you for having me on the discussion. I think this is very relevant in terms of considering where we are with the education policy, in terms of reviewing, including our evaluation system. So I think it's very timely that we are doing it. We need to do that for sure. I think it also goes back to a very fundamental question about assessment, and which is that I think as a nation, as a society, as maybe just humanity, it's very important to first consider, what do you value? Now, in my view, assessment flows from what do you value? And that question needs to be addressed very carefully when we are saying what is assessment, because assessment is deeply linked to education, because education system is going to flow around what is assessed. That's the hard nature of the way we are. So if we put together what we value, and therefore we go back to why do we do it? I think the second question is, what do we therefore do? And I think only in the third part should we really be looking at how. Some of the challenges I feel in assessment are because we want to solve the how first, we don't put the first two things first, which is why and what.
Why and what.
And if we put the why and what together as to what we value as a nation, what we value as human beings, then the current assessment system, whether it's continuous comprehensive evaluation or end of the year, is still fairly short. It's short because it doesn't allow an assessment system which keeps away some fundamental human development aspects which are necessary. Now, on top of that, you put technology, put the internet, put the speed at which, the internet does two things. The internet does one thing, which is it gives you incredible information available in a small little village in Chhattisgarh or in a small little village in Assam, all these places that I've been to, but the availability of information everywhere has become democratic. But I think what we miss out often is that the internet is also forcing a much faster rate of decision making, because decision making happens through flows of information. If the flow of information is fast, the decision making is going to be faster. And therefore, even Dr. Dasgupta and public health and mental health of children, of people, young adults, all will come into play in terms of what we want to really assess and what we want to do. So I would say first we have to be defining what we value as a nation. Now we talked about sports in between. I'm obsessed with sports. I believe whether in Shivnada School or Shivnada University, sports gets paramount importance because the values that you get from playing competitive sport, not just participative sport, are values for life. Because you learn how to play by the rules, you learn that you've got to have an outcome at the end of what you do, and you learn that if you lose, you have to be humble and go back to the drawing board. Now, these lessons are valuable lessons for anything you do in life.
Yeah,
So
one
sports
more minute,
has to...
Gopal. 1 minute.
Right. So I think, therefore, what you value is very important. And I would go straight to the what, therefore. And the what, therefore, is we have to assess emotional intelligence, social intelligence, and now in the pandemic, adversity quotient. Are we able to meet with adversity? And I think, therefore, collaboration, communication has to be assessed. And I would therefore say a 70-30, and it's radical, it's transformative, but I would say school system should only concentrate on the educational, the academic aspect at 70%, put an assessment system which is going to give you 30% on these things. Do project-based learning where you're going to be able to assess these things. Are you collaborative? Are you creative? Are you thinking ahead? And are you problem solving? So therefore, project-based learning has to be tested, has to be put in place. And therefore, I would say 70-30 is a sort of transformative assessment system that we should do. All that we have assessed all these years in tests and examination should get 70% weightage, then you do 30%. Now is the last part, then, okay, so how do we do it? Now, you can't be consistent across. You've got to let schools be able to do it themselves. It can't be a central board which only will assess. Why can't the school assess? Because when the school assesses and gives a report card, and we have a system in the Shivnada School called the Shivnada School Compass. So I'll end with this, where grade 8, grade 9 children are assessed for grit, for zest, for curiosity, for confidence, for resourcefulness, for social warmth, for emotional skill. It's a report card. And I would say when you put these things into a report card, then you are saying this is what we value, and then we'll get an assessment system that we want. So I would sort of end with that.
Thank you. I think there could not have been a better note to come to a conclusion on this. And absolutely, you are right. We have been reversing the questions as to why, what, how. Questions we are asking how. We are beginning with how, and then what, and then how, why we are doing it. I think that brings me to a very fundamental question of assessment, evaluation, and schooling itself. Why? Are we doing it for the purpose of certification, purpose of screening, as a screening device, as a signaling device in terms of putting the children into different categories, first class, second class, third class, and so on, in terms of certification, and giving a screening device to the next level of educational institutions who should be admitted for next level, for at the college level. Like there is going to be a mad rush now after the class 12 examination results to get admission into Delhi University colleges, and you get these cutoff marks, and slowly sliding cutoff marks. People and the children and the parents are anxiously waiting for them to come on the second list and the third list. So that is one. Is that why education should be there, to give a certification? Or is it there to create innate ability of productivity, enhance productivity, the human capital formation, in terms of all these characteristics that you have listed? And you have said that at Shivnada, you are going to have these norms in terms of when they came into the school and when they are passing out. What is the difference? That difference is going to give us the metrics in terms of whether as a school we are successful, as an education system we are successful, and whether the children are successful or not, the parents are successful or not, or the teachers are successful or not. So that's where we need to put our minds together in terms of being very clear whether we are doing it for certificates or we are doing it for creating productivity, because ultimately it is going to be the contribution of all the people of this country to its gross domestic product, the national income. we have been asking this question about how much of the gross domestic product should go into education. Since the Kothari times, 6% had become the celebrated example, a benchmark. But have we ever asked? And in fact, I wrote about it in a column in one of the economic and political weekly columns, posing this question whether it is the GDP in education or education in GDP. How much of the GDP is created by the education itself, the education sector. It contributes. It is the largest sector, service sector in the country, apart from health, apart from defense. So that's where I think our priorities needed to be. We need to reverse the questions, like you have said, ask first why. Similarly, we need to ask how much of the future generations of our country are going to benefit from the education system, and how much of this education system, the school system, is going to contribute to the well-being, to the happiness, to the standard of living in this country. With this, I would like to pose a very general question to all of you to reflect for 1 minute each on this question of, can we make our system more inclusive rather than exclusive? What policy decisions should be taken? And I would start where I had started earlier, with Gowri addressing this for a 1 minute, in terms of, we have heard so many exclusions of 30%, 60%, 40%, and so on. So that is where I think your final word, please.
Well, my focus is actually not just on the urban children, but also on the children in rural areas who are generally forgotten when we talk about the education policy. So the first thing is that the government needs to spend more of the GDP on education to provide better connectivity, internet devices to our children in the remote areas. Second is, whether we like it or not, we have to look at technology to reach all of them. Otherwise, to get them all educated in the country will take another 100 years. So we have to leapfrog, and the only way you can leapfrog is through technology. The third and final thing is, NCERT is doing great work, but they need to, I'll quote one of our panelists, but they need now to recalibrate and not think of outcome of the lessons. I was talking about the outcome that you want from your evaluation, something that Gopal has touched on. What is it that we want to evaluate? First, we have to be very clear on that. How much focus do you want? And also we have to think, whatever we plan, is it doable across the country? Is it going to be practical? Can the teachers in remote areas do it? So we have to keep the practical aspect in mind and come up with this evaluation which is workable. Something that's ideal may not work in our country with our numbers. So we have to be practical about what we do so that something effective comes out. It's very lopsided at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Gowri. And let me invite now Harsh Kumar to reflect on the same question for 1 minute, please.
Thank you, sir. And you, with the view of all the panelists and what NCERT is doing and what it should do. First of all, let me tell you, NCERT conducts National Achievement Survey, in which basically it is based on the outcome of the evaluation only. And the survey has been done in 2017. The last survey has been done on 2017. And the learning outcome has been based on that survey broadly. And obviously the curriculum outcome is also there, but it is based on that survey also. On this, on the development of connectivity and all, the government has planned extensively on this. And like I said earlier, it was planned before the pandemic to take these things forward. But due to the onset of the pandemic, this thing has taken a pace. And obviously, we cannot think only about the urban children. We have to think about the last kid sitting in the distant village. And the teacher training thing has also been, now it will be done in a comprehensive manner. I must tell you that NCERT was opened in 1961 on the lines of IITs and IIMs for the training of teacher. but then somehow we have missed somewhere. Our regional institutes in Ajmer, Bhubaneswar, Bhopal, and Mysore, and very soon we are coming with a regional institute of education at Nellore. So the thing is that all the standalone B.Ed colleges are going to be, on closer till 2030, and we are going to train teachers on 4-year B.Ed program, which NCERT is running from 1961. And the training of teacher is very important for getting the technology and technological advancement, because when the teachers will be trained, then only students will get trained. And one more very important thing, that now onwards, we are going to have a blended mode of education in which the infrastructure thing will be the connectivity, electricity, and the other gadgets to provided to the distant villages. Buildings and all will not hold that important, and same infrastructure will be used for many students. So the quality of education is definitely going to increase with the trained manpower and all the things. But obviously this will not happen in one day. This will take time, and we are very seriously working. Let me tell you that we have not closed for a single day in this pandemic also. Our faculty have been working day and night. We are coming, recently, Honorable Prime Minister has launched, because the most important stress is being laid on early childhood care and education. So on that, capsule has been launched for 3 months capsule for this Anganwadi and other concept which has come together. A standard operating procedure is being involved or evolved in the education for throughout the country.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I think that raises a very important question as to how long can we wait? How long? Because as Gopal had said, with internet, time is the most important casualty. What used to happen in 1 hour has to happen in 1 minute now. So with this, I invite Ajay, Professor Ajay Rana, to reflect on this issue of, can we make our system more inclusive rather than exclusive? What policy decisions should be taken?
Thank you, Professor Binod. In fact, my point that we have listened about the entire esteemed panelist. My concern is that education system and the policies that is equal to all, because there's a lot of challenges. There's some monopoly by some big institution, those who are established by the consortium of countries. Like one is the Europe consortium, one is about the Australia consortium, one, Binod, I think you are understand about what I'm thinking about all these things.
Yeah.
Now,
can you mute Harsh Kumar, please? Can you mute? The organizers can mute Harsh Kumar. Yeah.
So education policy. So that is the outcome of the system. Education policy equal to all. There's no discrimination about up and down. Point number one. Point number two, you check with the UAE or Australia or some other side. Why the maximum number of the students drop out from India at the age of around 16 or 17, like after 10th or after 12th? Because they know that they have the passport to visit these countries as they are part of the labor. Yeah. Because if you go with Singapore, if you go with Malaysia, if you go with UAE, 30 to 40% population from Asia. And they are working that particular time, particular place for hotel manager, taxi driver, or the caretaker. Why we are not like the education policy NEP 2020? Why we are not find the talent from our students from the very beginning, the school level? We nurture them. We nurture their talent from the school itself. Otherwise, Professor Binod, the Elon Musk, I'm touched with the 1 point. Elon Musk, who always challenged the entire education system. He said, I'm not go with any schooling education. His child in the class 2nd and working on the deep learning and machine learning, they are ready from the class 2nd. They have their own school. The class strength is only 1 student, and the school is up to the class 12. So Elon Musk take the LN challenges. He said, why I go with the traditional education? Same is from my side. If like IAS or IPS or bureaucrats or services examination, they said, okay, entire Indian history. I give the one, the enlightened from your platform. Okay, when the student take the birth, when the 14 year, 20 years, we consider only and only about these history and the current affairs about their knowledge. So that you will identify more Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg or the Bill Gates in our country. Yeah. Because they are not the college dropout. I repeat, they are not the college dropout. They are the person who itself dropped the college.
Yeah.
Stanford and many other colleges.
Exactly.
Maximum person said to me, like Narayan Murthy, Nandan Ninkane Sahab, Shiv Nadar Sahab. They are the person, like you said about the Birla, Tata. Tata become a Tata after 145 years of background. Reliance become a Reliance after 40 years of background, or 45, or Shiv Nadar, or that SCL group. But what about the future?
Yeah.
We trained our future generations that they are not about bonded with the ranking, NIRF. We have about many ranking agencies in our country. Those visit to my university is Professor Binod and Raja Dasgupta sir. Is these ranking agencies visit your organization or JNU? No, never ever. You said we do not invite any ranking agency in my parameters. But the NAC or NIRF give the highest ranking because your alumni stocks itself.
Yeah.
Because your product stocks itself. So that type of education system we give to the all, so that you will find the innovative and best citizens, not Mother India, but you will find the best citizens for our Mother Earth. Thank you, Professor.
Thank you, Ajay. I think it could not have been better than this. Very important and illuminating concepts you have given. Dropout or they have dropped the education system. That I think is very, very important. And then you mentioned brain drain or brawn drain and STEM professionals and those who are giving a miss to the education but opting for the labor market earnings in the Gulf countries and so on. Something that is very close to my heart and my field of research for a very, very long period of time. I think these are interconnected. These are interconnected with this last question that you have addressed in terms of being inclusive or being exclusive. Being inclusive does not mean that they are inside the class. Being exclusive does not mean that they have dropped out from the class and are in the labor market. Being exclusive means you are not thinking about them. They are not within your, within your purview. Whether we have written them off. We don't have a migration policy even till today. We are the world's largest source of migrant labor, as well as STEM professionals on the other end. Whole NASA was set up by IIT dropouts from the labor market because they were selling soaps when they did not get the employment within the country. And there was the Sputnik race. We don't have time to go into those interesting debates that have been triggered by your intervention, the last word that you have said. Let me now invite Professor Rajib Dasgupta to reflect on this issue of inclusive, exclusive, and what the policy can do. Rajib. 1 minute, Rajib. You have to unmute, Rajib.
Sir, I just couldn't hear the last bit because of internet issues.
Yeah, let me pose the question again. We want your 1 minute reflection on a general question. Can we make our system more inclusive rather than exclusive? What policy decisions should be taken?
Thank you. Well, I would take a slightly unorthodox take on it. I think what's being added to this inclusion-exclusion debate in the coming weeks or months is going to be the vaccine. Whether teachers and students are vaccinated or not, and therefore whether we allow them into the physical spaces or not. Now, I'll just underscore 2 points. One, that though childhood vaccines, COVID specific, are being designed, are in the pipeline. The health minister announced it would be available in August. It's a moot point whether it will be available in August or not, but to roll out in any meaningful terms, it will certainly take months. And to be able to influence vaccine-mediated immunity in children. Anyway, be that as it may, it is not a prerequisite for getting children back into schools. However, where we as a country have really missed out is actually prioritizing teachers as a priority group or as a frontline worker by whatever label we give them. And we are just not prepared today to reopen schools because teachers are not vaccinated. And this is exactly what Telangana is facing today. The Telangana government has decided to open schools, rightly so. The teachers groups have gone on to say that only 20% of us have received just one dose of vaccine. Their concern is also very genuine. So we have completely missed the bus in prioritizing teachers as a priority group. And I think it speaks volumes on how we value education. Gopal spoke about what we value. And I think it's a rather damning piece of evidence. Thank you.
Thank you, Rajib. I think very valuable points you have raised. First of all, about the vaccine inclusiveness or exclusiveness, and secondly, exclusiveness or inclusiveness of the teachers. You know, the inclusiveness or exclusiveness of the students comes later, but we have to make these conditions very, very important. The first lesson in economics is whether we satisfy the necessary condition. Sufficient condition can come later on. That necessary condition is vaccination. This is the lesson we learned from you. And now I invite Gopal to share his 1-minute thought on this question of can we make our system more inclusive rather than exclusive? What policy decisions should be taken?
So I will make 2 points. I wish I didn't have to be the last speaker here because you'd like to end on a positive note. But to make education inclusive, we have missed the boat by some 20 to 30 years. If we want to start now, it will take us another 20, 30 years to get right. Firstly, no country in the world has 50% of its children going to private schools. No country in the world. We have 5%, 7%, which go to the most exclusive private schools in the rich countries, but no country with our type of a growing economy can afford to have 50% of its schools going to private schooling. And the reason for that is the slow and sometimes sudden collapse of the public school education system in India. And unless the public school education is of the highest order, we can't address the issue of equity. There is an example, which is Kerala, for example, where there are hardly any private schools because the quality of the public schools is outstanding. At least it is among the best which is available. So unless everybody, rich and poor, all classes of society go to a similar school, the standards won't improve. And I think the only answer to that is to raise the quality of public schooling. And therefore, I have my own reservations of increasing GDP because it just means putting good money to a bad place. But unless there is political will and all sorts of other will to improve the quality and quality in a big way of public schooling, we don't have a hope in terms of improving equity.
Thank you. Thank you. I think that is what you have put your finger into it in terms of, and I'm pleasantly surprised that being from a private foundation, you are vouching for the private public system. But I know what you mean, that, you know, why this public-private divide? You need to make them parallel. You to make them competitive with each other or at the same level.
Because private enterprise can never solve the size and scale of India.
Exactly.
It has to be public schooling and getting better with public schooling.
Exactly. And that is where, when you come, you say you have given Kerala's example and you have talked about GDP. That is what I'm shunning, that whole issue of which has become a political cliche, that 6% of the GDP must go to education. No, we have to change the question, change the paradigm. We have to ask how much of the GDP should be created by education. And that can happen only if we have quality education in our public system, in our public sector system. That is what you have said. And that, I think, actually raises the question in terms of what should go into education. If we think that education, schooling education is expensive, if we think this is said by somebody else, if it is expensive, let's try ignorance. Let's try ignorance. You know, that is what would tell us how expensive is ignorance and how expensive is time, the opportunity cost of time. When our children cannot remain in the school, they run to the Gulf countries to work. That is because their time is valuable. This is the opportunity cost of time. We have to bring this back into the policy fold. And that is where I think that will be the answer to the bridging the divide between exclusion and inclusion. And with that, I'm trying to turn your negativity, which actually is veiled by the negativity, but it is actually a positivity. That's how I look at it. With that, I have thoroughly enjoyed it, and I
Thank
hope you people have also
Thank you.
along with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. It's been very enlightening, and I still disagree with all of you on the GDP. No, the government
We have
school
to, we have
education
to, we have
has
to put you, Gauri ma'am, into governance, only then.
No, but our government schools should improve, and there are examples. Look at our Navodaya schools. Look at the Netrahat school in Bihar. So government schools can offer excellence. We need political will.